Welcome to this explainer. So what if literally everything you've ever believed about reality is, well, only a tiny fraction of the truth? What if your thoughts don't just sit there inside your brain, but actually shape the physical world around you? Today, we're diving into the really profound ideas of the Seth Material. This is a fascinating body of work channeled by Jane Roberts back in the 1960s, and millions of people have called this material absolutely life-changing. They claim it completely transformed how they think, how they heal, and even how they experience reality itself. So let's just jump right in and see what happens when you rethink the very foundation of your everyday existence.
Okay, picture this. Imagine you're standing in front of a mirror. Everything you see in that glass appears totally solid, fixed, and, incredibly real. But according to the philosophy of the Seth Material, the physical world you interact with every single day, it's not the actual source of your experience. It's actually just the reflection. Your consciousness is the real source. And honestly, whether you view the origin of these teachings as mystical or psychological, or even just entirely symbolic, it doesn't really matter as much as the core message itself. This one idea has inspired psychologists, philosophers, and spiritual teachers across generations, basically begging us to reconsider what is actually generating the reality we see.
And this brings us to the central, honestly breathtaking claim of the book. Consciousness creates reality, not the other way around. Think about how we're usually taught to understand life, right? We're taught that events happen to us first, and then we react to them emotionally. Basically, circumstances define our identity. But this framework completely flips that assumption on its head. It suggests something far deeper, that our inner world is actually the engine driving the outer world. Section 1. The Reality Feedback Loop. Let's examine the hidden mental frameworks we unknowingly trap ourselves inside.
So here's how that invisible programming actually plays out in our day-to-day lives. It goes like this. Our beliefs, quietly and very often subconsciously, influence our perceptions. Then, what we perceive influences the choices we make. Those choices inevitably shape our experiences. And then, finally, the kicker, those lived experiences circle right back around to reinforce the very beliefs we started with. It is a remarkably powerful feedback loop. And without even realizing it, many people spend their entire lives trapped inside this cycle. They just assume reality is happening to them, when in fact, they're generating it right from step one.
Let's ground that loop in a real-world example to put it into perspective. Think about someone who deeply, truly believes they're just naturally unlucky. Because of that core belief, they automatically notice every single disappointment, yet they completely gloss over every opportunity. They expect failure, and so they unknowingly create behaviors that actually increase their chances of failing. Their belief literally becomes their reality, and not through some kind of magic, but through attention, expectation, emotion, and action. Modern psychology calls this confirmation bias and the self-fulfilling prophecy. But here's the wild part. These teachings were exploring these exact principles decades before they ever became mainstream discussions.
Section 2. The Expanded Mind, Rethinking Time and Intelligence. Let's dive right into this next paradigm shift, which suggests your conscious mind is just a tiny surface of a much greater awareness.
Have you ever suddenly known the exact answer to a difficult problem right after you finally just gave up trying to solve it? Or, have you ever felt this unmistakable intuition that later proved to be completely correct? Well, this philosophy presents those moments not as just random, irrational coincidences, but as a deeper form of intelligence finally breaking through. Beneath all our everyday chattering thoughts, there exists this immense inner intelligence. It's constantly processing information, generating intuition, solving problems while you're asleep, and quietly guiding your life. It's the kind of intelligence that modern society honestly often ignores, but it's constantly available to us.
This expanded view of the mind also totally shatters our rigid, one-directional view of time. Most of us think of life as moving strictly from the past, directly to the present, and then into the future, right? But according to these teachings, time is way more flexible. The past merely influences us. It doesn't dictate our fate. Today, the present contains entirely new probabilities, and every single decision we make shifts which possibility actually becomes our lived experience tomorrow. This perspective encourages deep responsibility, but, and this is crucial, absolutely no guilt. Because no matter what happened yesterday, today brings new probabilities and your current thoughts and actions can actively change tomorrow.
Section 3. The Tools of Creation. Let's see how this philosophy provides us with practical steps to actively participate in creating our lives.
Perhaps the absolute most empowering message of this material is that you are not powerless. You aren't just sitting around reacting to life. The book repeatedly pushes readers to question their limiting beliefs by totally shifting their internal dialogue. So instead of asking from a place of victimhood, "Ugh, why does this always happen to me?"
We're challenged to look inward and ask, what belief might be helping create this pattern? Instead of assuming your circumstances define your identity, it's about recognizing that your identity influences your circumstances. Once those invisible beliefs become visible, you can change them. And when beliefs change, behavior changes, relationships change, and suddenly new opportunities just appear out of nowhere.
Now, obviously, this doesn't mean you consciously choose every single event that happens to you. Life is still mysterious, it's unexpected, and yeah, sometimes it's deeply painful. But think of two people living through the exact same hardship. One becomes bitter while the other becomes wiser. The external event was identical for both of them, right? But their consciousness was not. And that consciousness changed the whole shebang. It proves that the meaning you assign to every experience ultimately shapes who you become. And this brings us to another fascinating teaching, and it's a real game changer: the role of imagination. Most people think imagination is just fantasy, something totally separate from the real world. But the Seth Material argues the exact opposite. Imagination is actually one of consciousness's greatest creative tools. Reality repeatedly begins inside the invisible world before it ever becomes visible. And honestly, history absolutely backs this up. Every skyscraper, every airplane, every smartphone, literally every single scientific breakthrough existed first in someone's mind before it became a physical creation. Thought always precedes creation, and this book simply takes that principle and applies it to every single area of your personal life.
Even our emotions receive a really powerful new interpretation here. We're taught to stop seeing fear, anger, or sadness as these enemies that we just need to push away. Instead, we should treat them like diagnostic signals. They're basically indicator lights pointing directly toward underlying beliefs that desperately deserve our curiosity and our examination. Suppressing your emotion just hides valuable information, but understanding it, that reveals it. This framework encourages us to approach our feelings with curiosity rather than judgment, which quite frankly is exactly why so many readers describe feeling completely liberated by it.
Section 4, Science and the Self. The crucial point here is how this esoteric philosophy, written more than half a century ago, connects to what we actually know today in modern science.
It's so interesting because modern neuroscience increasingly demonstrates that our brains are constantly filtering reality. We really don't experience the world objectively. We're experiencing interpretations created by our own minds. And we see this validated across so many different fields now. The placebo effect clearly shows that our beliefs can literally alter our physical health. We know for a fact that meditation changes measurable brain activity. We see visualization significantly improve athletic performance. And we know expectation fundamentally alters our perception. So, while science might explain all these discoveries using different terminology, they're all pointing toward a fascinating truth that aligns perfectly with this book. Consciousness matters way more than we ever used to believe. Ultimately, whether you see the Seth Material as spiritual wisdom, a psychological metaphor, or just a philosophical exploration, its lasting impact really can't be ignored. It challenges the single most important assumption we make every single day, the idea that reality just happens to us. Instead, it invites us to see reality as this ongoing dynamic conversation between our consciousness and our experience. This book continues to inspire millions, not because it hands out easy answers, but because it invites us to ask deeper questions about who we are beneath all our thoughts. It teaches us that changing our inner world is the absolute first step toward transforming our outer reality. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to remember something. The greatest power you will ever discover isn't hidden away inside some mysterious book from the 1960s. It's hidden right inside your own consciousness, the exact same consciousness that is taking in this information right now. If your thoughts truly do shape the world around you, it leaves us with one final vital question to ponder. If your beliefs shape your reality, which belief would you change today? Until next time, stay curious.